As usual, this meeting is being broadcast live and digitally recorded, so please know that. And we'll start off, as always, with open session. Anyone here for open session? Okay, none? So, Ryan, why don't you take us next?
Sure. So we wanted to recognize the newest police officer in our department. Being a small town, people are going to recognize a new face, but the amount of work and effort that goes into an academy and then serving in a community is definitely worth recognizing. So we wanted to do a small but important pinning ceremony tonight for our newest officer, Donald Blood. And Chief's going to talk about it first.
Hi, Chief.
How you doing?
And Jeff. So the pinning ceremony is a ceremony within law enforcement. It goes back years and years and years. It's one of the traditions that we feel is important. It welcomes the officer into the family of police officers, and I think here it welcomes them into the family of service to Hubbardston. And our selection and who we picked to do this, Don Blood. I'll tell you a little bit about Don. Don was hired as a part-time officer in January of 2015. In the ensuing 2 years, he earned a reputation as a hard-working officer that holds the virtues of community policing. Everyone that has met Don commented on his likability and his hard work ethic. It was for these reasons that he was hired as a full-time officer for the Hubbardston Police Department in April of 2017. He then worked hard to prepare for the police academy to attend in January of 2018. Graduating in June of 2018, he showed the same work ethic and tenacity in the academy as he does every day working for the people of Hubbardston. I'd like to now present Officer Donald Blood for formal swearing in as full-time officer of the Hubbardston Police Department.
Kelly Parker, our assistant town clerk, is going to swear in.
I, Donald Blood,
I, Donald Blood,
do solemnly swear, you don't have to repeat. Do solemnly swear that I will faithfully and impartially perform all my duties according to my best skill and judgment for the ensuing year, imposed upon me by my appointment as police officer for the town of Hubbardston, according to the law of the Commonwealth, so help me God.
You can come up and pin Don.
Stab you right with it.
That'd be awesome.
Sorry. Oh, put your hand back there.
Me?
Pretend you like this.
Let's redo it.
Is it good?
No, hold on, one more thing.
Let the kids do
Really?
it.
Sorry,
Thank
Pops.
you. There you go.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
thank you very much.
Thank you, good luck.
Thank you.
Nice.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
You proud of your dad, kiddos? Yes. It looked like it in the picture on Twitter, too, that we saw as well, so. All right, excellent.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. All right, what's next?
All right. So when I started, I met Lucinda, who's come here tonight. Was working in our Board of Health, and having been serving on the Board of Health for years, was very quick to point out all the things that I needed to do and all the things I needed to focus on very quickly in order to improve the department. It became very clear to me years of dedicated service to the community, and specifically recently on the Board of Health to try and improve our services to be preventative and also to be very focused on community relations. Wanted to recognize Lucinda tonight. She, despite my many requests to stay, has decided not to serve on the Board of Health anymore. And in honor of her service, both as an employee of the town and as a Board of Health member, the Select Board wanted to recognize you for your service. The official Hubbardston non-such-apple plaque will have the board present it to you. before that, Tom wanted to say some things as well.
Just wanted to say a couple words.
Uh-oh.
When Lucinda mentioned that she was gonna retire, no one could believe her age, that she was close enough to retire. So I did the math backwards. And if you figure the years of service, what they guessed her age was at, her age, she started when she was 11.
Good going, Tom.
But there hasn't been a person that I've known in town that's been in the town as long as Lucinda, with the same goals and thoughts all through. She started off as a secretary when we had secretaries, before it went to clerks and now administrative assistants. She learned the Board of Health inside and out. Unfortunately, when she started, the training was 0. They left her in the room and said, "You're on your own." And every secretary, administrative assistant we've had since, Lucinda's taken time out of her life to come in and make it easier for those who were put in that position, and there have been quite a few. So let's give Lucinda a big round of applause for all her hard work and dedication. And the pay.
By the way.
And she always wears a smile.
So this is a pretty awesome plaque,
It is pretty awesome.
and we know it'll be featured prominently in the house.
Oh, yeah?
Thank you for your service, appreciate it.
thank you.
Thanks, Rob.
Well, thank you.
All right.
I should have gotten it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank
you.
you. Thank
Thank you.
you. Thank you, Kelly, for coming. Thank you,
Thank you.
Tom. Thank you. And thank you. Well,
Thanks.
Bye, Kelly.
It was very nice of you. And this is very nice, very much appreciated, but I am so retired.
How's it feel? Good?
Well, you know what? I retired from teaching, and then I retired from municipal government, because when I left here, I went to Sterling and worked there for planning. And then June 7th, it was the first time I felt like, wow.
I'm free.
It's
Yeah.
pretty nice.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really nice. So my husband's been retired 7 years, so now I've been retired less than a month, and I'm like liking it.
Well, if you're getting
So she-
bored,
so
we
she's
have
around all the time now.
vacancies.
Yeah, she is.
How are you liking it? No.
That's great, I don't have to listen to her at night.
Yeah.
Let's not do this here, let's not do this here.
No, that's great.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
enjoy it.
Said we miss you. I don't think you two can travel any more than you're traveling now, can you?
We're trying.
Oh, good for you.
Good to see
Yeah.
you.
We just booked Panama
Nice,
Canal.
nice.
Yeah. Yeah, February.
fun.
Enjoy it.
I'll be thinking about y'all.
Yeah.
There you go.
Sorry, I won't. I'm lying. Well, thank you
All
very
right.
much. Appreciate it. I didn't expect this.
All right, have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. That was nice. Thanks, guys. All right, we're gonna bash somebody now.
Yes. Positivity.
All right, so we have an appointment.
We have a couple, so I don't know if we want to just move it down to the end with the other ones, that's fine.
That's fine.
Oh, yeah, well, we can do appointments if we want then, cause poll petition at 7.
Yeah, sounds good. So we have on to the Joint Transportation Committee,
Yep.
and who is that?
That is going to be Travis.
Travis.
And then you have the other ones, which is Barbara Carpenter, which is going to be to the Historical Commission retroactive to 6/30/2018. Barbara Carpenter also to the Community Preservation Committee retroactive to 6/30/18. Dennis O'Donnell to the Emergency Management Director position retroactive to 6/30/18. Judy O'Donnell to the Emergency Management Assistant Director retro to 6/30/18, and then William Lipka was just presented by the Council on Aging, so his would be effective tonight if you decide to vote him in. His appointment letter is in here as well. He did come recommended by Claudia.
Okay.
So you need a motion to appoint
Can we do all of them? Or
Yes,
Other
you
than, other
should be
than the
able to.
last one, since it's effective tonight, but can we do all the others under
Yep.
one motion?
I would
Okay.
say we did the other ones retro to 6/30/18.
Yeah, I'll
Okay.
make a motion to appoint as presented from Lori, including Travis, to the Montechusett Joint Transportation Committee.
All those
Right.
are retroactive to
To
6/30,
6/30.
2018.
Yep.
I'll second the motion.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
And then William Lipka to the Council on Aging would be effective tonight.
I'll make the motion to appoint William Lipka, Council on the Aging, effective 7/10/18.
Second that.
Discussion? All in favor? Yes.
Yes.
It's 7/9. You said 7/10,
I did. Oh, excuse me, 7/9.
sorry.
I'll second that.
Discussion? All in favor?
Yes.
Okay, so the poll petition, I don't see a time on here, is that 7 o'clock like normal?
Yeah, it's always
Okay.
7, yeah.
Alright. Alright, so next item was, Board of Selectmen reorganization.
Joyce was the one that put that forward, just saying in case you wanted to do anything, it
Yeah.
should be on the agenda. If you wanted to leave it as is, that's fine, but she thought it should be documented somewhere that it was on an agenda.
Agreed, I think it's
So-
an important discussion to have, but I do think it's probably a little bit more important when you have a full board.
Correct, so not everybody was here and we didn't know that when the
Right.
agenda was
Alright,
done,
so
so
we'll
we
just
can push it off
push-
to next time.
Okay.
So July 23rd for that?
Okay.
Yep. We have some line item transfers next.
Yes, so these should be the last two major transfers. I
He
have it up.
has them up here, I don't have
Oh,
them
as well.
Okay.
full screen mode.
So these don't include the ones we went over.
Correct. So
Okay.
those were all passed by the
Yeah.
Finance Committee. Both of these have been seen by the Finance Committee
Mhm.
as well. We met on Thursday. So this is the annual town meeting Route 68 reconstruction project was about 75,000. So we've been going through that budget. It's currently overexpended by approximately 25,000 or so. We believe that an error was made because of the names of the accounts are all Route 68 something.
Sure.
So when we were paying the different accounts, and we are going through them now, and we will make sure that they are correct. But right now it's in deficit and we're ending the year. So we wanted to cover the negative 27,339.60 in terms of housekeeping. One of the errors we think is in the engineering designing account, which is also Route 68 reconstruction. We believe money was supposed to be pulled from there, or was supposed to be expend from the other account. So we're gonna take that 17,006 and put it into the negative account to bring it good. And then veteran benefits came in a little under 12,000 under this year. So we wanted to transfer the rest of that money to make that a zero balance account. So this came from the accountant. She believes that she might be able to unpack all of the various bills and everything, but with all the other end of year, she wanted to make sure it's covered. So the point being, this might be moot, but it'll definitely clear us for the end of the year.
Okay.
I'll make the motion. Or is there more? Is that
There's
it?
one more. So
Sure.
we got the final bill from KP Law. We are 28. We already did a $10,000 reserve fund transfer for the Finance Committee. We need another 3,000 to cover. So the total bill for KP Law this year was approximately 52,000 and change, a little under 53,000. So this 3,000 would allow us to pay that final bill and close out 18.
And so, I think you've stated it before, how we're gonna try to do a lot better with our legal expenditures through other avenues and whatnot, right?
So it is one of my strongest priorities, is to not control access to town council, but to understand all the requests, to continue to follow up, to make sure that all of them are funneling through me so that we can try and use free resources. We've talked to KP Law about this. I also will have a contract from KP Law, which wasn't in place, that explicitly demonstrates their scope of services and is a 1-year contract to make sure that costs are controlled there, so that their best practices of procurement, making sure that they're following up on their end of the bargain. In addition to working with Carolyn, who's our point, to make sure that we're tracking quarterly where we are in expenditure. And now I have a good feeling of how much town meeting costs, et cetera, so I'll know what I need for the end of the year.
I think we had a little bit of turnover throughout this last fiscal year. I'm not surprised. I mean, I know
Yeah,
that my
yeah.
stance was let's not get it wrong, you know. So it's like, yeah, you didn't want to necessarily have to go to council with everything. Not that we went with everything, but we had contracts, we had just legal issues that, you know, we couldn't answer, I think, and we had 3 of you.
I can only speak for me. But I do take it personally that this is over, so I want to make sure that there's controls in place and to be held accountable next year if this same situation is coming up.
Ed?
Do we still have them on a retainer basis for all of our normal things like contract negotiation and that? Because we, at one time, it was just billed by hourly. And then we went to a contract with them when we were gonna take a look at changing legal firms and put it out to bid. Then we went to where we had a retainer, and the retainer was for most all of our usual business. And then beyond that, it was on an hourly basis. We still with a retainer with them or not?
We are on hourly basis.
Hourly all the way?
And we get detailed bills every month that are public documents demonstrating how much time was spent answering an email or phone call, etc.
From my time on the finance committee, we found it was better to have them under a retainer. And that retainer had a list of all of the items that were included in that retainer. And then it was only the exceptionals, like, you know, if you get into a dispute or something like that, and it's a separate legal case or something like that, then it would be billed hourly.
So
and-
much like accounting or any of assessing or legal, which is all outsourced, I've asked for 1-year contract from each in order to assess under my supervision the efficacy of the contract, and then to rebid everything in the spring using best practice techniques. So it's definitely something I would consider, but given that I've only been in place for 4 months, I wanted to view an entire year's worth of services in order to assess properly where we should go.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
So is that it on that?
So what do you need from us in terms of the
Yeah.
line transfers?
So this would be a reserve fund transfer from the finance committee reserve fund to cover the rest of the bills for FY18. So a vote for a $3,000 transfer from reserve fund to legal.
Okay. So a motion, I move to transfer from the reserve fund $3,000, that was the
$3,000.
$3,000
Just more than we need.
to close out the fiscal year, basically to close out the fiscal year.
I'll second that.
Discussion? All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
What about the prior ones?
Yeah.
Mhm.
that's
Yeah,
That's what I was
no,
gonna ask.
I'll make a motion to approve the year-end line item transfers that were previously presented.
I'll second that motion.
Discussion?
Those, the first.
We never
two.
actually voted on that.
Oh, no?
No, no,
So, second discussion? All in favor?
yes.
So the final
What's this?
those are the transfers
That's what we just yeah, okay.
to sign.
Oh, sorry. I need more direction.
So under the Modern Municipal Act, this is a best practice to approve these transfers. It makes it very transparent. The remaining transfers that exist, according to accounting, will all be well under $100, mostly cents, to make sure that everything is locked up. And Gloria and I and Eric have been working to make sure that any of the old accounts that have been negative for a while, that have been on our recap sheets, are clean. So we're trying to fully clean FY18 so that FY19 is a I don't wanna say blank slate, but
Clean slate.
understandable. So we can have that good full year of evaluating our policies and practices.
Okay. You wanna do your report next?
Sure. Alright, so end of year financials, we just talked a little bit about that. The staff has been working like crazy, just trying to both teach me the intricacies of their particular roles, in addition to fit into what I want to accomplish, interrupting their daily activities. So I appreciate that. We're trying to build a strong foundation for FY19. The year closes on Thursday for us, the 12th. Should be in good shape for that. for FY19, we had a staff meeting where we established that all departments and all employees would develop goals for FY19, so we have most of them now. We've been working through them to refine them and make them effective and not just an exercise, but something to drive department growth. This will include my personal goals. We're gonna have a report for you at your next meeting, a full report to show you what all the departments are gonna be working on for next year, so we can hold ourselves accountable. I've been asking the departments to reach out to their boards as a best practice to develop their own goals for their boards to try and drive board development, and I'm recommending the same to you, to schedule a session upcoming to what you want to accomplish as a board, using me for the coming year.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. Again, I hate to blame turnover, but we used to do this annually. You know, we had select board goals and we would assess them sort of later, but when you sort of have a different person to assess who wasn't part of the process, it's just a little clunky. But I think this is a great idea.
So I can, you can reach out to me and we can kind of consolidate ideas to talk about in public, or can get examples from other communities, however you want to do, just reach out to me.
What we've done in previous years is we've given ourselves a deadline and said to get what our potential discussion points goals are to you guys prior to whatever meeting we choose, and then sort of go over them there and refine them. That right?
Yeah.
So when do you want to do it?
Well, that was fast. We have only
be-
one meeting in August, or we have July 23rd, August, or
We'll do the August meeting?
Sure.
okay.
Alright, so that's, what is that, August what?
August 20th, I believe.
Right, so we will be, any luck,
That's a Monday. It's
Yeah.
fully paperless at our next meeting, so shamelessly plugging.
Alright.
you can come in early. We'll walk you through it.
Gotcha.
That doesn't mean if we don't need, just let us know if you want something printed or if it's easier to understand. So this is my homepage, we'll get to that in a second. So we've created a human resources department page. This is a portal for both the public and for our employees to use. So the organizational charts that were presented last time have been updated to include our two new employees, one being our town custodian, who started today as part of the town meeting vote for those services. And one of the good parts, besides hiring an excellent person for this position, is that's gonna free up the Department of Public Works. It seems small, but just going back and forth to do this duty, plus the hour or two a day they spend on that, it can now be spent doing road work and other activities, and much more efficient use of their time. And then the planning board assistant, we advertised that today. I met with the planning board on Thursday to discuss expectations for this position. I feel like we came to a good understanding of what's needed for that department. Also using Patty, who's been splitting time between the building and the planning assistant, so we'll be hiring in that position. So this represents town meeting vote, and just a visual representation of the town.
So we just, two of the appointments that we just had were emergency management director and emergency management director assistant.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that would fall under
The elected.
emergency preparedness.
Was that one part-time, like it says, or is that two part-time?
So the one paid employee is the emergency director, which is on a stipend.
I thought I caught ya.
Please do catch me, I'd like to get it right. So this includes our full-time and part-time employees, which right now I have at 21 and 45. So the blue, just for understanding, is elected boards outside of direct control. However, hiring authority comes through me and Board of Selectmen. But just to kind of talk real quickly about how we operate, the planning board has voted to put someone on a committee to help us hire, right? So we're trying to make sure that the boards have full input in any hiring decision. We do the same for the assessors or any of those other boards that have assistants that work under us daily. And then this hasn't changed. Elected officers, boards, and committees. one thing we did talk about was deciding structure of some of the committees that have been around for a while, whether or not they're still needed, trying to carve this down to what's useful. There's a conversation I'm recommending you have sometime in the near future. What's still needed, what should they look like, how can they be the most effective to make sure we're maximizing the talent we have in town and filling these positions.
Yeah, I went through all the different ones today on the website just to see which ones were lacking participation, and there are 3 or 4 that have never even started. So they were begun through the charter, as you probably know, and then they just never went anywhere from there. So I think that's a good discussion too.
So that is
Okay.
So employee vacancies. As I alluded to, Gerald Parker started today as our town custodian. He began working today. In addition to custodial duties, he'll be helping with projects around town hall and trying to reduce the work order load on the Department of Public Works again, trying to maximize the employees there.
Is this seasonal?
It's
No.
not.
So, okay.
It'll be 12 hours a week for the year.
So that there could be even sort of some snow removal stuff around here?
Some light, even part of the job description was light duties around here, again, to try and free up more Department of Public
Right.
Works.
Yep, okay.
To include overtime and the like.
Okay.
Alright, we talked about it last time, so again, I'm just not gonna do this every time, but just walking through some information that's available on my website. We've included all of our town contracts, the procurement efforts we're doing, the reports and information, which I'll get to in a second, the reports that, like now that I'm giving to you, and town policies we updated will be here for the public to view.
How, you know, not suggesting that's necessarily what happened here, but these sorts of websites and links and whatnot can get stale when they're not paid attention to. You know, how what's the process for updating it? Is it just part of the daily routine for you guys?
So right now, Lori and I are doing the bulk of it, but we are working with employees to identify ways to improve their pages. I sent that out as a request today. There are some committees and departments that have stuff from 2011, 2012, like you're talking about. So we're going to put the onus on the full-time or part-time employees that work here to make sure that they're at least advising us of stale content, if not updating it. This is really user-friendly. I do my whole page myself. I don't have Lori do that, and it takes me, you know, I don't spend. It'd be inappropriate for me to spend a ton of time on it, but
Yeah.
It's really easy.
Okay,
Plus,
great.
Good thing.
this website has the option to delete things after a certain amount of time, so you could run them for 2 weeks and then they would expire and
Okay.
not show any.
Well, you know, I think what this does too is it reduces the amount of requests for this information and takes the time frame away from you guys when you have to come up with it. So if it's here, even if you're spending a little time getting it on there, I think it's just well worth it.
Yeah, like when we approved our 2 union contracts, or say my contract, or people want to see that, we're putting it up there because it's public information. You should be able to find it quickly. So this department report, all department report, we just published it today. So this is this month's activity. We're continuing to improve it, trying to tie it to the website, so again, people can access their own information, add links. So this describes all of our departments' activities for the last month and what they have coming up the next month. We've made it really simple for the departments, so it only takes 10-15 minutes for them to send the information, and then I curate it and use old templates. So again, it doesn't take too much of my time.
Yeah, no, great.
And this is what we'll be doing with the boards and committees.
Mm-hmm.
So again, boards and committees, we know they're volunteers, so we're gonna reach out to them and try and keep it, hey, this is what we did, this is what we think other people should know, and this is what we're doing next month. It should only be either a 5-minute conversation or a 5-minute email that we can curate and put out in a report to the public to demonstrate some transparency and some coordination of effort.
Okay.
So along these lines, in this section, some reports we have coming up, the all department and all board. The goals we're gonna present next time. I have Sandy working on a tax title plan. What our plan is to reduce the amount of unpaid taxes that are in a community. We haven't presented that information yet, but she is, I don't wanna be too clinical, but she's killing it. She's been empowered to try and collect some money, and the most common response we get is either I didn't know I owed money or no one cared. we care, so we're gonna come and ask about the money. And most people, to their credit, when they realize that they owe some money or that someone cares, they're paying it. So
That's
we're
good,
gonna be redoubling our efforts to try and get rid of those backlogs, and you'll see a plan for FY19.
And so that's not going to be 100% successful, of course.
No.
Or anywhere, whatever. I'm not going to try to pretend like I know a percentage, but I know that other municipalities have then, after that initial step of outreach, have taken sort of a next step. Do we have a plan for a next step?
We will, and it'll be presented publicly, but the plan right now is to notify and then to start putting people into tax title. And then the next step after that would be to work with our tax title lawyers to take property if we have to. Then, I mean, that's an extreme step, but it's available and should be used if things get too out of whack.
And it follows negotiated settlements as well.
Correct. And this is, we work with residents, so this isn't draconian.
Right.
It's reaching out, finding what the issue is, communicating. As long as we're being communicated with and an effort is being made, that's the idea, that's the goal. We're not trying to take people's houses or land, we're just trying to make sure that there's a fair payment of taxes across the town. So 99% of people pay their taxes, so this isn't really an issue except in a few cases. I'm working with, this week we're meeting with all departments and board representation for our 5-year capital plan that's being paid for through a grant with with UMass Boston. That's starting on Wednesday. That should take a couple of months to complete. And then I'm meeting with Eric on Thursday to start the update of our 5-year financial forecast. The goal is to have both of those in place before we start budget conversations next year, so we can put things in context. And then zoning enforcement, been working on that quite a bit with this board and many other boards. We're gonna have a plan in place very similar to our tax plan for how we're gonna tackle zone enforcement issues, using a lot of the good work that this board did in the past. There's a report out there, plus our work with trying to redouble our efforts in the building department.
Hey, going back a little bit to the 5-year financial forecast and the 5-year capital plan. How do you, and I think I said this last time, how do you do that with such a variable school assessment? You know what I mean? I know I'm not really asking you to answer it, but it's such a hard. You know, it's such a hard thing. You know, it's almost like you lose energy to do stuff like this, which is not the right attitude. I don't really mean that, but when you know that 60% of your is going to Quabbin and Monty Tech, and a lot of the things you want to plan are hard to plan.
So I agree. To me, it's setting priorities before you start allows the budgeting to go smoother. So what is our savings goals? Snow and ice, for example. What do we want to do with snow and ice? Do we want to continue to run a tax recap deficit every year and use free cash? Or we want to try and incrementally increase that. So setting maybe a 5-year target for how much do we want to save, best practice there, how much do we want to reduce snow and ice, legal, how do we want to reduce those? Do we want to try more regionalization? So that's what that forecast does. It puts decisions into context and also allows residents to decide, are you comfortable with this level of service? Do you want more? Do you want less? And what does that look like? But you're never going to hit, like the deficits are always really scary, right? It's, you owe $1 million in the next whatever, you're never going to be able to accomplish it.
Right.
Hopefully, the way things have been going, it doesn't quite hit that level, but it does allow you to make decisions in there that fit into a bigger picture. Passed around a model today. So just present that information so that people understand. When we're talking town meeting, you know, you do this long list. I always hated as a voter, this long list of accounts. You're like, well, what does that mean? 5 years from now, what does that mean? What does this raise mean? This allows you to answer some of those questions.
Okay.
So all that being said, I'm looking for the board's requests for, you know, other things that you have been curious about in terms of reports or information that you want. We can empower the staff to build those for you and certainly get those out to the public.
Why don't we start with what we got here
Okay.
first?
We'll get it done. A lot of this stuff is just consolidating information that already exists.
Yeah.
So it seems like a lot, but the staff already does this on their own. It's just getting it into a product that people can digest.
Yep.
All right, volunteer vacancies. Lori has put together our current vacancies. by board and committee, that's in your packet. We'd like your support to start an aggressive campaign to fill these. Part of that is deciding if we should fill them. If they're still necessary, that conversation we just had, and also the structures of the committees, their missions, whether or not they're still valuable in the community. And then we'll go out and we'll try and shake the trees, I guess. I keep talking about the finance committee. There's 3 members. We had to get all 3 members to find a place to meet, or a time to meet, a day to meet, because they don't have a quorum unless there's 3 of them. But that's it. There's 2 vacancies there. Finance committee, Lori laughed. She said it's not the most appealing committee, but it really is. I mean, it sets a direction for the community. It's a really interesting way to get engaged, and we'd really like two people to step up and be a part of it. Whether they have experience or not, the other board members do, and they'll help. So will I.
Finance didn't make it on this list.
Yeah, finance isn't on here, but there are 45 openings, plus those 2 and whatever else.
Another one I'll point out is the capital planning committee. We're gonna have a new capital plan. The idea would be to ask what you want that capital plan to do, update that annually, make sure it still makes sense, have department heads held accountable for their 5-year obligations. It's also very interesting, not overly time-consuming committee.
Yep.
I think 'cause they're electing, that's why they weren't on it.
Okay.
Yeah, these
This
don't
is
include
appointed, yeah.
elect, these are just
Yeah.
appointed.
Okay.
So that's why. But you could appoint somebody to the next election.
Right.
But capital improvement just shows that you have 5 members and you have 5 vacancies.
Okay.
Do you wanna pause for?
The hearing.
Absolutely.
7:07.
Absolutely. All right. Do we have? Where is that in here?
It's next.
Do you have? Is it? Oh, you have it? Yeah.
For the poll?
Yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna read this. We have a poll hearing. It's 7:06, 7:07. Somebody here for that? Hi. Want to come on up? Thanks for coming.
Hello.
Hi. So. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So.
Where's 7:06, 7:07?
All right. I'm gonna.
No, that's the time.
The time, okay, mine
Okay.
says 7.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just
Yeah,
we
we just went
didn't
up.
quite make it 7. We finished some other business first.
Oh, okay, so
we're-
this is this.
This is this.
Okay. Don't know how many poll meetings you have.
Okay. Oh, you're here for that too?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, you're both here. Okay, sounds
Yeah.
good. All right, so I have to
Okay.
do a little legal stuff here and read this, so it's going to take a minute or 2. So this is a notice to abutters of June 20th, 2018, to all interested parties in conformity with the requirements of Section 22 of Chapter 166 of the General Laws. Ter ed. You're hereby notified that a public hearing will be held at the office of the Board of Selectmen, 7 Main Street, Unit 3, Slade Building of the Town of Hubbardston, Massachusetts, on Monday, July 9th, 2018, at 7 p.m. upon petition of National Grid and Verizon New England, Inc. Permission to erect or construct and a location for a line of wires, poles, or such other fixtures as may be necessary to sustain or protect the wires of the line for the transmission of electricity upon, along, across, or under the following public ways of said town. New Westminster Road, National Grid to install 1 JO, and what's JO?
Jointly owned.
Jointly owned, pole and anchor on New Westminster Road. National Grid to install pole, down guy, and anchor with an 8-foot lead across from pole 60 New Westminster Road. Pole and anchor will be located on town property on the south side of New Westminster Road. Pole will be labeled 60-84. Location approximately as shown on the plan attached, which we'll look at in a minute. Let me just finish reading this.
So you're from the company?
Wherefore it we'll have you guys introduce yourselves in a second.
Okay.
Wherefore it prays that after due notice and hearing as provided by law, it be granted a location for and permission to erect and maintain poles and wires, together with such sustaining and protecting fixtures that it may find necessary. Said poles to be erected substantially in accordance with the plan filed herewith marked New Westminster Road, Hubbardston, Massachusetts, number 262733303, June 19th, 2018. Also for permission to lay and maintain underground laterals, cables, and wires in the above or intersecting public ways for the purpose of making connections with such poles and buildings as each of the petitioners may desire for distributing purposes. Your petitioner agrees to reserve space for 1 cross arm at a suitable point on each of said poles for the fire, police, telephone, and telegraph signal wires belonging to the municipality and used by it exclusively for municipal purposes. All right, so if you guys want to just introduce yourselves real quick, and then you can show us the map.
My name is Rich Naleski. I work at National Grid in Athol as
Okay.
a designer.
Okay.
All right, nice to meet you, Rich. Michael John. I am I own this property.
Okay, so you
Yeah.
own which property?
The 142 Westminster
So
Road.
is this across from that pond?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I just got it in October and I'm planning on building something.
Sure.
Maybe you can use our pole.
Exactly, that's.
All right, well, let's see the map. Want to show us the map so we understand?
Okay, so we have we have an existing pole 60, shown here.
So we're at New Westminster, there's Lombard down there, Adams.
And
Yep,
Bigfoot
it's
Pond would
it's
be-
very close to the intersection of Lombard. In this area, this is wet,
Mhm.
it's a pond, okay? And presently, there is a guy wire, well, there was a National Grid guy wire in a tree
There is still.
crossing the,
I just took a picture of it.
that's telephones.
Oh, okay.
But anyway,
Okay.
but anyway, National Grid's guy wire has failed and is now resting up against existing pole 60. Okay, so we propose to, we're requesting that the town grant us a location for a guying pole across the street to take the place of that tree. And the reason that we don't put the guy wires in trees today is just because of what happened here.
Right.
Because over time, the trees fail on us. Not that they're made specifically for this.
Right.
They give us good oxygen, also as a benefit, right? But by policy, today we try to get these pole locations for guying. The poles can also be used maybe as a takeoff point for a line extension on a piece of property that may serve a house. This pole could also be used if the house was close enough to the street for an underground service connection.
So is this a standard pole?
It's going to be a 35-foot pole. It's the smallest standard pole we use for guying purposes only.
Okay.
Actually, existing pole 60 across the street is also a 35-foot pole.
If this is going to be reconfigured into a pole for a different use, or not reconfigured, but if it's going to be additionally purposed, do you have to do anything with the guy?
Well, this gentleman showed up, and I'd like to talk to him about what he plans to do on the property and
Okay.
how far his house is back, and then that determination can be made
Okay.
if this pole size is appropriate for that or not. Regardless, we're petitioning for the location. We
Right.
can always change the size of the pole in the design to be appropriate.
Well, how about the location too? In the event that there's a curb cut that
Well-
is in a preferable place.
Well, you may want to address this, and indeed that's maybe why you showed up tonight. Did you see the stakes out there?
I didn't see the stake, but I did see where the pole was, and then it looks like this was going to be directly across.
Mm.
So that's about maybe 5-10 feet from where the entrance, driveway will be.
Well, the actual stake, and I made note of this, there is an opening.
Yeah.
That's where your driveway is going to end up?
Yeah.
In that area? Okay. This staked location is, I'm going to say, it's at least 10 to 15 feet away from that. It looks to me like the engineer saw that opening and specifically staked it away from that opening so that you could clear the snow and be able to turn into that opening. Again, when I looked at it this evening, I was not aware that a house was going to be built there, but some of these openings are for logging and that type of activity also. So now I know.
You got anything you're concerned about?
Well, I just have another number of items, but so there's a cluster of trees there. Are you guys going to take those down?
Why would?
Oh, I don't know.
You may end up taking them down if you widen your driveway
Okay.
yourself.
Well, so how do you install the pole? That may be a bit. You got an auger?
Yes, there's an auger that's used to install the pole. A 35-foot pole is set 5.5 feet deep, leaving 29.5 feet for the portion of the pole above the ground. There may be some trimming required just for the top of the pole, for the very top of it. It's right now, its intended purpose is not for carrying high voltage, but we have to talk about where he's building his house first. Okay?
When you say high voltage, do you mean like
Primary.
three-phase or just no?
Single phase.
Single phase.
Yeah, single phase for a house unless you're building a company. But I don't believe you are. So, it would be for, at worst case, if you're building many hundreds of feet back on the property. I don't know how large the parcel is, but worst case, it'll be for single-phase overhead primary.
How do you, go ahead.
Yeah, so it's gonna be about maybe 100 feet back, 75 feet back from the
Okay.
road.
Okay, well,
I had to
in,
get a variance because the town actually owns that that little swath.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's
uh,
something.
for a setback, so I came here to get a variance, but they gave me quite a large variance. So it's gonna go about 75 to 100 feet from the road.
that's the front of the house.
Yeah, the front. yeah.
Okay,
So-
so in that case, National Grid can serve either running an overhead wire to the house, or we can allow him to use that pole also for an underground service.
And what kind of process is that a 2-year process to get that going?
I hope not.
Well,
The time-consuming thing with setting a pole like this is actually the town petitioning process.
no, I guess what I meant is
Yeah.
getting the permission to add his power to that pole.
You will be giving us permission through the wording.
Okay.
Of
So
the
let's just
petition.
say across the street there was a impenetrable ground that you couldn't get into,
Right.
but you still had to stabilize the other pole. What would you do? What would be?
Well,
you put one on each
in
side
this
and guy it.
In this case, we are kind of a best case scenario would be to locate this pole directly across the street. And I'm sorry, what's your first name?
Michael John.
Mike, where Mike is going to have his driveway. I noticed that the pole is out of line a little bit, but it happens to be in line with the guy wire that the telephone company also has in a tree right now, a different tree that the National Grid had our guy wire in. So it will still work for our purposes where it is, where it's staked. And if this was impenetrable, that usually doesn't happen. But when he comes along, if he does want an underground service, we could also ask for an easement for the pole to be along his driveway on private property. We could also ask him for that. You guys wouldn't be involved at all, and we could still run power to his property. It's just a coincidence,
And so
that he's building the house, and
So you would run it underground to a panel that then his electrician would take it from.
yes, since his house is so close to the road, that meter location could actually be on his house.
And who pays for the? I'm sorry, I didn't ask you.
No,
No.
these are good.
No, these are good questions, and he wants the answers to these also. In the case of an underground service, National Grid would connect that service at the top of the pole. That was either on public property, as we're asking for tonight, or on private property further down the driveway. So you would own the service, you would maintain the service. Your service point of attachment is actually at the top of the pole, technically. And this is a very common practice.
So any underground would be
His
he
responsibility.
pays
His.
for.
Yeah, he would pay his electrician to put that in. Yeah. But the pole can also be used to help support an overhead service
Right.
to his house over the roadway. Okay, and depending upon the orientation of his house and the style of his house, how high we can hit the house with
Let's
an
call it.
overhead
We know
wire.
it's going to be an estate, so let's call it an estate from now on.
Okay, an estate. The estate. We could possibly hit that house with an overhead wire from that distance. So he's got some options.
Okay, so overhead wire, how high does it have to be?
Well, if it goes over a driveway, we need the wire to be 17.5 feet at lowest point of sag. Over a driveway or roadway. If we're just crossing grass, 13.5 feet.
Okay, so I'm planning to start out with, I'm gonna do a garage and then a little apartment on top, so it'll be like kind of a small little place.
Yeah.
So there'll be a garage, I don't know, maybe 12 feet high, something like that, and then another structure on top of that, another, perhaps. So it seems to be
depending on the
That
orientation.
would make sense.
From what you're saying, from what
Yeah.
you're describing, it sounds like we could hit it with an overhead wire.
Okay.
But obviously the peak has to be oriented toward the street. I don't know if that's your plan or not.
Right, because if you want to do solar, you have to have the peak south face. You know,
Oh.
you want the one side of the building south facing.
Hmm.
So, but you know, it's good info.
And what if you couldn't hit it right from there? Would you have to install another pole?
Well, he could add his option if he wanted to have a more aesthetically pleasing installation. He could have his electrician put the wire in underground.
Yeah.
Or you know, when his house comes along, we could he could have his electrician build a temporary stanchion for the period of a year during construction if he wants that. He has a number of options for construction over there. But we can talk a little more about, you know, where exactly. In fact, I'm going by it on my way home. We can stop
You wanna go?
there and talk.
Okay.
Absolutely.
We'll go take a look.
While we have daylight,
Yeah.
these long
Okay.
days.
Yeah.
These long days, that would be great.
Yeah, I'm just thinking maybe, is it possible to do some sort of underground work in conjunction with this that makes it easier in the future? For me?
Underground work, how? What are you asking?
Yeah, I don't know. So if something makes it easier for me if I'm going to be
Well-
connecting it underground.
Well, I think the installation of the pole there, from what you described, might benefit you. Generally, if you're going to be 75 feet back from the roadway, okay, so we have the width of the roadway. National Grid, our maximum overhead service distance from a pole is 120 feet.
Okay.
So crossing the roadway, you know, and depending upon the exact location of your structure, you may be over that already. You may require a pole to support the overhead wire if
Okay.
you were going to go overhead.
Okay.
So this pole could certainly be used to that end.
But to clarify, I think the answer is you're going to get power to the top of your pole, the new pole that would go in, and then your electrician would have to pick up the power there with a conduit riser to
If
come
you
down
wanted
and
an
then go
underground
underground.
service, if you
Okay.
wanted that, yeah.
Yeah.
If you wanted overhead, there's a possibility that we can run an overhead wire from this guying pole,
Mhm.
which would then, you know, serve two purposes.
So, what are the requirements for? You know, we know we've seen them over the years, especially after the 2008 ice storm. That National Grid either themselves or typically has tree crews that come out and do trimming.
Oh,
and-
I believe there's a 5-year rotating program to trim around primary, which is the high voltage wires at the top of the pole.
Okay.
Okay, those are the wires we're concerned about with tree contact causing outages. As far as trimming around secondary, we don't generally chase that, even if a customer requests it, and the reason is that those wires are run at low voltage, the same voltage that's in your house. We
Yep.
call that low, and they're insulated.
So the other side of the street is where the primary would be, and that's where
That's correct.
the trees would be focused on, whether it's a tree on either
Right.
side.
So trimming has already taken place along the existing lines, and in fact, it could have been an arborist that initiated this job for the guy wire,
Noticing.
the guying pole,
Yeah,
right?
okay.
Noticing
That
that.
makes sense.
Okay. Oh yes, how long is this? Because okay, say I want to put this structure up, you know, before the end of the year.
Well,
long is that your
this is
project?
obviously, if we have the rights to get this pole going, this will help you along. I would recommend you call in a service request right away, as long as you legally know that you have the rights to put your you know where your structure is going legally. There are some people who call us a little bit early in the game, and they don't have a building permit yet, or a septic plan, and we discourage that. But it sounds like you have all that in order.
Well, it's close. Yeah.
So
You didn't really answer the question, though.
I would call it in immediately.
Yeah. But how long do you think it would take for this pole to go in?
Well, I don't have control of the crews, and I don't have, my department doesn't schedule the jobs. So depending on what else is on this job can be scheduled if this is the only thing holding it up. I'm not aware that that's the case right now. I would have to look at that.
Okay.
So the answer is I don't know
Okay.
right now.
It's just-
I'd have to look at the job.
What's your aim, like, what were you hoping
Um,
to have?
if
Like,
somebody
for the
approaches us,
company?
if somebody approaches us,
Yeah.
For the service to a structure, and, there are polls involved that involve petitions or easements, my experience is somewhere between 3 and 9 months from the time that work request is called in, and that's why I would do
Okay.
it, so.
What if, like,
you can.
I didn't? What would be, like, what was your thought of, like, how long it's?
We can do it next year.
You, okay, so you don't have any really time schedule, you just sort of, this is preliminary and you could do it, okay. You
Right.
can do it anytime.
And I think he used the word discouraged, but I think if you applied for it and weren't ready, you'd be like, sorry. There's no like penalty.
No, and as I say, from what you're describing, from the situation you're describing, the location of your driveway, which is just to, let's see, how is this oriented? Okay, so it's on this side of it, right here. If your structure is gonna be in this area, this pole could certainly be used, depending upon the orientation of your structure and the height of it, to run both types of service.
Alright, yeah, I'll show you maybe and you can
Yeah.
give me a guesstimate.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Well, we're here to sort of approve or not approve poll. So, do you have any sort of, based on what you've said here? I know you're not an electrical engineer and all that other stuff, and neither are we. But we see poll petitions fairly often. I think I've always had good experiences with National Grid and doing the appropriate thing. So, I mean, it would be our next step to vote on that. I think, unless you had any real reservations.
Well, I just have one more question, is that,
Of course.
If I were to want electricity before this time frame, what do I do? I know this might be separate.
You can request a
guys-
temporary service. You can request a
Okay.
temporary service. Your electrician can build a stanchion high enough to run a wire over the road, and we would find a way to serve you directly from pole 60. You can build a stanchion to the side of this.
Over
but,
the road.
Yeah.
And what would that,
That stanchion has to have a point of attachment, 17 and a half feet high. Has to be braced in 3 directions. And I have my truck out here. I can give you a diagram of one.
okay.
I work in construction. We do those all the time.
Oh,
So they're
really?
very standard sort of things that you
Common.
got to get up. You've seen them if you've driven by any, not any, but often they have it. It just looks like 2x4s up with a
Yep.
Okay.
Meter on it.
meter on it.
Alright, yeah, see, I'm sort of new to all this, so I'm just getting all the info that I can.
Understood?
Yep. So, thank you. Appreciate it.
Anything else you want to add to this for now?
I think it's good. I won't take up, bore everybody.
No, usually we don't actually. No one ever comes, so we're happy to have you.
Okay, yeah. Well, I'm all into this, so it'll be fine.
All right. Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the poll location as presented.
Second the motion?
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Unanimous. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you for explaining it all to us.
We can
Okay.
go out to
Let's go.
your home
All
site.
right. Thanks, man.
Thank you very
All right,
much.
what's going on?
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Are you the council? Where's the selection? Report.
Yeah, we got a
Selectmen
couple
of the
things to
Thank
sign
you.
here.
And I work for them.
I left the top one.
Oh, sorry.
Nice to meet you. Looking forward
And we'll mail this out.
Your pee's in the way, so I don't want.
Thank you.
You're welcome, thank you.
There you go, Jeff. Want to sign that in a couple places? Or no?
Thank you.
Anywhere. Okay. One of
Yeah,
those
just on the
lines.
line.
You're
That's right.
75
Oh,
feet
two
back
pages.
from
Behind the
your
property
front
line.
line. That's 75 feet back. The only way you can get around that is to go to the zoning board of appeals.
Oh, I did already. Yeah.
And,
Both, this one too?
50 feet.
I made
so
it
you
through
go up
part.
to 50 feet.
They give,
Yeah,
it's
no,
a line of 50
Hmm.
feet.
Thank you.
Okay. Good night, guys.
Good night.
Back to the report.
So continuing on, I've been diving into three departments in particular lately: planning, building, and health. These are to assist those boards. I've been meeting with the boards, and again, I understand the authority of the boards in these cases, but trying to help advance the proactive nature of our health department. Building's a little bit easier since we have a pending vacancy, and then planning. So I'd just really like to thank the planning board for their assistance. They've been coming in, specifically Tom Bragco on his free time to help understand some of the accounting practices. So we're really firming up those policies, in addition to helping with the planning assistant hire.
Okay.
So I will be prepared to present some choices for the building department structure at your next meeting, in terms of regionalization and or in-house building inspection and how it ties into our zoning enforcement efforts.
Okay.
Alright, back to the website. I'm really plugging hard. Just our procurement section, trying to create some visibility for town procurement.
Great.
We have one opening right now for computer network administration, information technology, technical assistance.
Currently under
s-
contract with the
CM
Geeks.
So we are not in contract with them. It
Oh.
actually expired in the interim. So we've been using them. I called the state. We are to fill this as quickly as possible, but there's no immediate need to hire us. So they want us to go through the entire 30B process, which I'm doing. So we advertise this in all the appropriate places, put together an RFP package. We decided RFP based off the intricate needs and the demonstrated ability of folks to administer services to both public safety and town offices. We felt using the RFP process rather than a straight bid process was better. Obviously, if that comes in, and we hope it does come in for less money, we'd have to change that approach.
Mm-hmm.
So this is available now.
Do you know last time, Dan, when we did this, how many people actually bid on it? Was
I
it
think
just
it was just one.
Yeah. Okay.
Gotten a lot of questions, no packages yet. That closes on July 27th.
Okay.
Some upcoming discussions. You know, I like to let you know what we're going to be talking about, or what I'm going to be asking you to discuss with me. One is town office space. At town meeting, it was determined that we need another planning assistant in the budgeting process. We don't really have room for another employee, and we expect we'll find a way. Obviously, we'll find a way to make it work. But we're not the only department with this problem. We need to just have a conversation about space and where you want me to go with that. From everything from suck it up and do your job to
To modify hours to not have overlapping.
or to talk about a larger discussion like building a new building.
Yeah. Sure.
And whether or not we want to pursue that with all the efforts that it entails.
Sure.
The building department structure, we just talked about that. We're gonna have to make that decision in the next month or so. So we're just gonna have a good discussion, final discussion about it, and then we'll move forward and fill what's gonna be a vacancy in September. Very important department for both our economic growth and zoning and the way our town looks and feels. So we just wanna make sure we get this one right.
And it needs to be said, our, renewed commitment for enforcement.
Yes. And that's been part of every conversation that I've had with, in terms of regionalization and even the potential to hire someone. We will make sure that that's very clear, and that's part of the hours structure is zoning enforcement. And lastly, financial goals. So
Ed?
Just one question, do we still have the building committee, does that still exist, or is that?
The
gone
senior
by?
center / public safety building committee? That's gone by.
Gone by, cause, at some point in time, I don't know whether Breezy Hills would be available for sale again. But, we occupy, a third of the building anyway, and, I would just say that if someone was gonna look for a town hall building, that one certainly, might fit the bill.
Mm-hmm.
And who knows, there's a lot of vacancy there, so I don't know, whether the owner would have any interest, but, if you were looking for, a new town hall,
Yep.
that might be a lot more reasonable than building from scratch.
Have you dealt with them yet, the owners?
I have not, none except through Chief Hayes.
Okay, so okay, so,
And just more to that, we're currently renting space as a fire department, and then now we're talking about adding on with our mitigation system to a place that we rent. Just there's larger conversation needs to be had about where we wanna go.
yeah,
But obviously it's a lot of time and effort of the staff, so we just wanna set that direction in the right
And
lines.
using a wing of the school, is that still in the air?
it is in the air. There have been 6 walkthroughs with all sorts of different people discussing the possibilities of it, but I don't think we can, I don't
Is it
think,
a possibility?
it's a possibility, but we had to make some decisions to not continue to pursue it at the time because they needed to renew their contract with the CAPS program that takes that wing currently. Otherwise, that CAPS program goes somewhere else, and we lose that revenue as well without having everything else figured out. So it's definitely not dead. It just it went sleepy.
And I did my own walkthrough just as part of my orientation with the now departed superintendent. It's got its challenges. It really does, and it would be expensive to,
Cost retrofit it.
in my, hate to say my opinion, but it would be a patch. In the same way that using the library is, it's just not ideally set up for that. It was meant to be a school.
Okay.
All right, and then financial goals. So we doing the capital planning in the financial forecast. I'm going to be coming to you in the next couple of months with just thoughts on the budget, information, and where we want to go in the next year, so that we can have a real thorough and directed budgeting process for FY20.
So can you, just because I was on one of the committees and saw the emails for the time slots and stuff over the next couple of days, when you have people coming in and each department's got its own little time slot and all that, what's want to just explain that?
Sure. So we got a best practice grant to do a 5-year capital plan. So the Collins Center out of UMass is coming on Wednesday to meet with me and the financial team first for about an hour. We sent them all the documents that they need to put capital into a larger picture, existing capital plans, etc. So then they're going to meet with each department and board, and for a short amount of time to direct them into how they want to have capital submitted, what they should submit, what counts as capital, what's going to be part of the plan. So that direction will then allow the departments and the boards to come back with, this is what we're going to need for the next 5 years. So I've been priming the staff for the last couple months, saying this is a big part of our larger financial picture. This is something you need to invest in. I'm pretty committed. I obviously need the support of all the boards and other members to, if you're not on the plan, you're not getting funding. So,
For example, Town Center Committee, the final 100% design money, they'll want to know how much that's going to cost so that it's fit into the overall 5-year sort of forecast.
I'm looking at computers here that are 6 or 7 years old, so I have to put my request to upgrade computers on there.
Sure.
Vehicles are an obvious thing that always comes up. And in building space, how does this all fit into a picture?
Okay.
So the voters should know at the end of this is how much things, like if we got everything we wanted, which you never do, but if we got everything we wanted, this is how much it costs. If we did nothing, this is the repercussion. Where do you want to go? That's the idea behind this plan.
Okay.
Just want to reiterate to the staff and the boards that if it's not on the plan, it's not happening. So we only have so much money. Add-ons will be at a luxury at that point. So we should be really thorough with this plan and also not waste their time by continuing to do it over and over again. We're
Sure.
going to put a process in place.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And last thing I have, employee recognition. So this one came out of the blue, but the fire department delivered a baby over the holiday week. During the transport, Chief Hayes and one of our firefighter EMTs, James Ayers, and Mike Parker worked together to deliver a baby in the back of an ambulance.
So I'm interested to see how the discussion went on, like who's driving versus who's delivering the baby.
I think Mike really made out there. Although if I was driving it, I bet I'd be pretty freaked out.
Yeah.
So, just a really cool thing that doesn't happen very often, and the best part is that everything was done safely, and that the baby girl's doing really well, and our firefighters deserve credit for what I'm sure is the scariest thing they've done in a long time. So
Wow, that's great.
I'd like to thank them.
Okay, so vacation leave policy amendment.
So this is another policy in the long line of policies that I'll be bringing and updating. So in our personnel policies now, there's two things we're gonna talk about with you tonight and ask for your support on. One was the accruing of vacation while you are a probationary and first year employee, and then trying to keep us competitive and an attractive place to work. So it's unclear currently in the policy manual that I'm working to update fully. So this would be a supplemental policy, whether or not you accrued vacation in your first year of service, and then when you could use it.
I don't think so. I know you said it doesn't say it, but I don't think it was ever intended to accrue.
Right.
Right.
It's definitely not explicit.
Right.
This would be pretty rare that you wouldn't earn anything in your first year anywhere. What wouldn't be rare is your ability to not use it in a certain time frame. So, looking at other policies and the way people do business, it's more likely that you're able to use. You would accrue in your first year, but then you might not be able to use it. So I'm suggesting that we allow our employees to use their accrued vacation after their probationary period, which right now is 6 months, and then to make it explicit that you accrue 1 week of vacation time in your first year. So you would accrue up to 5 days or 40 hours or whatever your hourly is prorated, and then you can use it after 6 months, which gives our employees some time off, very minimal, really.
And so then what happens at the end of you've expended your 5 days after your probationary period, but are you accruing more after that probationary period?
So at the 1 year, you would have accrued the full-time week or 1 week's worth of service. So if you work 30 hours, then you'd accrue 30 hours of vacation leave. You'd be encouraged to use it between 6 months and 1 year so that we don't have great liability.
Right.
You're only talking a day or two though, so I would allow employees to carry that over into their next year. Right now, after 1 year of service, we offer 1 week's vacation,
Yep.
which is not very competitive in terms of the market. So I'm suggesting that you accrue 1 week in your first year, and then after your first year of service, you start to accrue 2 weeks of service. Up to 4 years, where you would accrue 3 weeks, and then at 8 years, you would hit a maximum, which is 4 weeks. So right now, we have 5 weeks in our manual, which is also very rare. Given the time we have, in the service amount of time we have, it would cripple departments and could cripple departments with 5 weeks of service. So I would obviously not recommending and would say that this policy would exempt anyone that currently has 5 weeks of service, but we should look at rolling that part back. So really what this policy is trying to accomplish is to reward and to retain our employees after 1 year and try and get them to stay, but then to also roll back the maximum so that we're protecting the town.
So how does this work with consecutive employment? Meaning, you work here for a year, you don't, you come back for 2 years, you don't, you come back for another, you're at 4 years and you get 3 weeks?
So I would say that we can make this explicit in the policy, it would be accumulated service.
Yeah.
So unless you had a reason for leaving that's exempted by law, say
Sure.
family medical leave
Sure.
or maternity leave, then if you're just on and off, then we would use a cumulative service time.
Is there any reason why we wouldn't want to do that?
No.
Sorry.
No.
So this is also consistent with most of the unions. So this is a secondary effect. So in the first budget that I was recommending to you, we tried to create some wage parity so there'd be less difference between non-union. This is also trying to create some parity within the employees of the town so that one's not helping the others. Also, on that sense, we'll be putting in policies where, if town hall's closed, then either you need to make up that time or you won't be accruing, let's say, time off. So we're also clarifying what is time on, what is time off in these policy discussions. So
Okay, so
it's not all just giving time is what I mean. It's trying to make it fair for everyone, but also clear and consistent across the board.
No, and you already said it as far as recruiting people and then wanting them to stay and be happy when they're here, right? I mean, that's all, be more efficient, that sort of stuff, so.
So this also seems like a big change, but this does not affect many people.
Right.
A lot of people that are in full-time positions have been here for a long time, and we're having trouble retaining people who in our full-time positions or getting new ones, and we're going to have some pretty significant vacancies coming up. And those people that are hired into the say the department head positions are also given more time than this when they're hired anyway. So this doesn't have a big impact.
Yeah. No.
If it affects more than 2 people, then I'd be surprised.
Yeah. Okay. So, is this not final yet?
It would be if you give me your blessing on it, your approval.
I guess.
And it would be incorporated into our manual that we're updating.
I guess if you just want to add something about the consecutiveness.
So I'll make a motion to approve the vacation leave policy amendments with the added wording.
Second emotion.
Discussion? All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Town meeting.
Budget and town meeting lessons learned.
So this is where I'm asking you to tell me, we talked about having this conversation a while ago, but what went well in the budget process, what you think can be improved, I'm looking more for the improves, and also the town meeting and town meeting warrant processes. So how can we do that better? I'd like to document it now while we remember it. It doesn't have to be a real long conversation, but we're looking for those pieces that you thought to yourself, well, this could have gone better X, or what you did there was good, so that we can make next year's process even better.
And so I'll just start us off. I know that you know, this is right when you came into here, you know, but I think that the order of the articles could have been better, and I think maybe we ultimately got there, but it was a little rough getting through the process of understanding town meeting and where to configure certain items. And this is not like a shifty way of going about things, but just to make it, and it, you know, we had a pretty good town meeting, it flowed pretty well, but I did think that it took some effort to get to that point, and I think that's just from lack of really being part of them before, from that standpoint. So I mean, that's not a real big criticism, it's just that was one observation I had.
So how would you, like, what would make it better?
No, I think you just have to have experience, you know, and so you've been through it now, and then you see how the year goes, and how the mood for certain items ebbs and flows, and then I think it just starts to make more sense once you get to the next time. So I think it was just something
So I think there was a lot on that also.
Yeah.
So it was kind of hard to, you know, it wasn't like a normal town meeting. There was a lot of stuff on the warrant. With the special town meeting, with the regular, you know, it was pretty confusing to a lot of people, but I think that was really hard to avoid, considering the information that was on there.
No, agreed. And it was just sort of evolving as the warrant process was going, because then there, you know, the CPC articles coming in too, so it was, yeah, and that I guess that's potentially unavoidable.
Maybe a firmer deadline, but that's
But
gonna upset
yeah,
people,
no,
you know?
yeah, it is going to upset people, but still, that felt like it was up until the last minute, because it was with the mailing. It was like it was just there, and you know,
Well, it seems like that every year.
maybe. Hey, he asked me to criticize him. I'm gonna criticize him, not him. You know what I mean? But as far as so budget and town meeting lessons learned.
The budget, so the timeline, the presentation, the information that was available, the decision making, looking for anything that we can glean from there for the future.
I actually think this year there was more involvement than in past years, and maybe it's just because there was so much turnover. But like the different slides you had when we came in here and different departments came in here, it was pretty. I don't know. It was there, you know. In years past, I remember all of a sudden there's the budget. You know, here you go. And there wasn't really much discussion about it, but I think we had more discussion this year than we had in the last 2 years.
Yeah, I do too. And then I think with the way things are moving forward with the website and the additional information out there, there'd always been sort of complaints of, you know, people just didn't know stuff was happening. and that's always going to happen. But still, if it's more out there now, then less of those people exist.
Yeah.
You know, and people don't feel like you're
Well,
just trying to
I
slide
think
stuff
with
in.
town meeting, you have the group of people that stay up front with everything and stay in touch with everything, then you have the rest of the town that really could care less. I mean, I hate to say it that way, but even with the town election, it's the same way. You have this strong core of people that are involved in all that, that are always here voting, then you have probably 3/4 of the town that didn't even know it was election day, you know, stuff like that. So that's kind of hard to avoid unless, I mean, I talked to people that didn't even know it was election day when it was election day, you know. So I mean, between that and town meeting, I don't know how you could get it out there more, because
We
it
mail
was,
it to every
well, that's what I
household,
mean.
we post it online, we post it on Facebook,
It's just
we
the apathy
did it on
that
cable.
exists within the community.
Yeah. But one good thing that is happening now, and will be over the next 3 or 4 years, is construction. So for a long time, like, nothing ever happened, right?
Mhm.
I mean, nothing had been approved, whatnot. But and a lot of this came through from previous years, from approvals from Mass DOT. But I think that's progress too. That's like for those who are never going to be involved and don't want to be, doesn't matter. They're never
Yeah.
going to be involved.
Yeah.
But for the cynical, you know, I think, especially if they're understanding that they're not paying for a lot of it and all that, really can sort of sway confidence level in town government.
Any of the presentations you found extraneous, or you thought, well, that was really useful? Just want to make sure that we're using your time wisely, because I know some of those meetings went long.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was all necessary and appropriate and organized and professional and all that. So no, I wouldn't. I mean, I don't know.
No, I think it went well.
Yeah. Ed?
I had one personal disappointment was that, you know, we always used to be able to table an article to a time specific, and the moderator said that was not available to do. And he wasn't correct, because I checked with the town council afterwards, and yes, you can. You can bypass an article to a time specific, so.
You know, and I felt the same way as you, but he was adamant, and you know, he's sort of running the show there. But you were there, you were present, you heard him. He was
Right. Well,
adamant.
it's been done in the past,
Yeah.
and, you know, unless we move from, we're not in Robert's Rules of Order, we're in what town?
What, during town meeting?
Yeah,
I
I don't think it's Robert's Rules of Order.
no,
I
it's
think
not,
the
because
other one.
no.
But, yeah, cause I checked with town council afterwards, and I don't know why town council wouldn't
I
have
know.
stepped up and said something, to make that correction.
Hmm.
But, that could've changed too highly, you know, I don't know, not that controversial, but too,
Impactful.
Hmm?
Impactful.
yeah, they both passed.
Yeah, but they're two impactful articles, like
Yeah,
significant impacts to
Yeah.
the town.
and do you know when, I'm sorry, I don't wanna interrupt, I'll do it again. I just wanna know when you might have another, when we would have another town meeting.
I don't know. I mean, we typically have a fall one for.
Because I probably will, have a citizen's petition on two issues, and I don't wanna do it, because don't you have to do it within such and such a period of time
Yes.
that you receive them?
Yep.
Well, I don't wanna cost the town, to have a meeting just for that. I'd rather coordinate it and be,
Well,
so
We're
that
really
would be when
closing
you're
it.
normally gonna have one.
We're trying to close the fiscal year and then assess need to then potentially schedule something in the fall. But we need to close the year first,
So I'll probably be fall meeting.
and that's up to the board.
it's been October, September the last couple of years. So, and ours was based on what he's talking about with some financial snafu that we had to put together a town meeting. And if that's the sort of thing that comes, then that's the perfect way to add a citizen's petition to it there. So, and then another one came up because it was the senior center was going to be its own special town meeting as well. So that sort of
Yeah.
came
Well,
up.
that
And
got forced by a citizen's petition too.
that's right.
So
Okay.
town meeting, we did the open house in the beginning, and then obviously, we had a pretty cumbersome special and then an annual, so looking for anything in there. Any comments on that or anything you wanna
How
capture?
did the open house work?
Slow.
Was there,
It was slow because of the first one. As the meeting got closer, it was busy.
okay.
The feedback was that it was really helpful for interboard communication, but again, the public maybe didn't know about it, so I'm gonna try and do a better job of maybe insert or something.
Right, so
Can't
I-
force people to go, but.
Yeah,
No.
right, but and you can't expect the first year or something to just all of a sudden.
I mean, it can just do so
Work.
much. I mean, everything is sent to the town, for example, in terms of on the warrants, but how many people read them? And then they claim they don't get any information. You know, you can only do so much in a small town. We've got that sign by the park up there that says, you know, meeting, vote, et cetera.
Is it painted police car?
Back to
Yeah.
what you said, Ed, it's, you know, there's apathy.
We won't
So,
bring that.
Okay.
I don't know how else you can do it. Or what else you can possibly do, you know.
Chicken soup.
Yeah.
What'd you say?
I'm not
Chicken
doing the
soup.
chicken soup.
Yeah.
It all comes down to a chicken soup. It's the only other way.
Alright, so it's useful, I'm able to document some of that stuff, cause we'll forget, so I just wanna make sure that we include it.
Yeah, and I'll think about it some more too. You know, I knew that item was on there, but I wasn't 100% sure what the format of this discussion was going to be either. So,
And then pretty soon I'll be coming up with I know it's crazy to think about, but the FY20 timeline will include a lot of, I know, makes me shudder too. So, incorporating these lessons learned and then trying to get ahead of it with discussions and goals and things like that so that it's not as tight. Because I had that same feeling that don't know how much I could have helped, but it was very
Right.
tight at the end, so we wanna expand it out to make it more of a conversation.
yep.
One of the things from the departments, just so you're aware, was they enjoyed speaking to you directly. Not sure if that's been done in the past, but maybe incorporating a little bit of that. It's easier to understand a budget request when they get to talk about it. So right now they talk to me and I can understand it and convey it, but you know, maybe we disagree or I disagree with the department head and they get a chance to come to you. So not opposed to that larger discussion to see where it fits in the priorities.
Yeah. No, agreed.
I think a lot of the success of the library roof came from that communication, so.
Yeah. But the town meeting was.
I'm surprised we got it in one night. 'Cause
Right.
I was,
Yeah, it
So,
went
I
a lot
thought all
faster than I
along it was gonna
thought.
be
Me
2
too.
nights, you know.
I was ready to settle in.
Mm-hmm.
The week-long town meeting.
Yeah.
Sleeping bag in my car.
All right, so we have some wage authorizations here.
Mm-hmm.
Benjamin LaFortune, DPW full-time. Leroy,
Contractual increase.
okay. Leroy Lahane, part-time mart driver.
These are, to keep competitive, in other towns, these are, I don't wanna say overlooked, but a position that can be overlooked because it's a state money we use for this, but they are employees run by the Board of Selectmen. So Sharon, Leroy, and Gerald. Sharon is the dispatcher, and then Gerald and Leroy are the drivers.
Yep. And Ben got a great review by Travis.
Yeah.
A really strong review.
Yeah.
He's a really strong employee. A good find for us.
Yeah. Independence is the word, right?
Yeah.
Work independent.
He's told what to do and he does it.
Yeah.
So, and then the last one we have in here is for
Gerald
Parker, who's the new town custodian.
Okay. Can these all go under one
Mm-hmm.
blanket?
Motion. Is there any waiting period or
It's to
With
waive the
appointments or
notification period.
waive the notification? Okay,
You'll get that someday.
huh? Someday I will, yeah.
We'll type it on your Chromebook.
Yeah. Okay, I make a motion to accept the wage authorizations as presented, waiving the
Notification.
notification period.
I'll second that.
Discussion?
Thank you.
All in favor?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, committee updates, the QEMP task force, next meeting we have, which is to discuss, I actually got an email today, they requested a couple of weeks extension on the report, which is what the, CMRPC, I forwarded that to you, just so you'd know. This, the CMRPC's final report based on the $100,000 grant and all the meetings we had and all that. And then there is a task force QEMP meeting in September, after everyone has time to have summer and absorb it, and then we're going to meet with them to sort of go over that and then what the next steps are. And I think I described last time when we had the regional meeting, when there were 80 or so people there, whatever it was, and we were all broken into our different 4 groups for each of the 4 main points: economic development, shared use, regionalization, and then school stuff. There were working groups built during that meeting. So there's going to be sort of an update of where that stands, so that those working groups, we're going to be working with the towns, working with the CMRPC, and as applicable, working with the new economic development coordinator. So it's just sort of still been going, and we're still waiting for the report. The town center committee, we spent some time over the last month just sort of totally figuring out the dollars, right, for design. So I think we're there.
Yep.
We know how much available. You know, we funded it a few different ways, from a schematic design to last year's town meeting to this year's town meeting to complete streets to, you know, all that. And we've sort of finally figured it out with the engineer and Mass DOT and several Mass DOT people on where we're at. And the next piece of work is going to be we got the approval to change the sidewalk, because we had to, from High Street to the rec field, which is what they originally approved, to Elm Street. And the reason, just to reiterate why that sidewalk got changed, is because Mass DOT said, hey, we're doing Route 68 North. However, you have to add a little bit to your town center project. So it couldn't be done. It was just not going to be done in the right order. So anyway, design is currently ongoing, and you're going to see some survey people, which are actually, they've already been out there surveying on Elm Street. And then that's, I forget how long that is. It's a pretty long sidewalk. It's going all the way down the street. Yeah, all the way past. So that work's going to get designed and put out the bid, and, you know, hopefully constructed this fall. So that's that. We have a meeting set up in a couple weeks, but I think I'm going to cancel it because town center wise, we don't have to wait on much. I mean, talk about much. But all the money's been authorized to get to our final sort of, just about final place with the main project, and that's it.
Want to add the economic development coordinator to approve the IMA, and so we met 2 weeks ago and
What's the
interviewed-
IMA?
Intermunicipal agreement for the economic development coordinator
Oh, yeah.
shared in the QEMP region. A lot of acronyms
Yeah.
there. We interviewed 2 candidates, and we have 1 more tomorrow. We will likely select our economic development coordinator tomorrow. So at next meeting, you'll know who that is, and should be have a start date for them to begin their year of service under a grant for our community.
Did you get much interest? Do you know if we got much interest?
There was I think 10 applications
Oh.
total.
Nice.
It's definitely a very interesting job.
Yeah.
For a planner type or someone who likes municipal government. So.
Job/challenge.
Yes, it's a challenge.
Yeah.
Very different candidates too, so very interesting group.
Okay. All right, we got a couple of minutes here. Looks like May 7th.
Just, you and I were here,
Yeah.
Dan. So,
I got a question on that, from a point of order here. Before the motion is made, cause I was not at this meeting, so I would be abstaining on the vote, but can I second the motion so that we can have it?
No, I'll second it.
Because, well, that's in the other point of order, can the chair second a motion?
I think in this scenario, when we don't have, I think it's just whoever's here, right? Didn't we do this before?
Should be.
Yeah.
Okay, alright.
Yeah. No, it's a good question,
Not a
but
problem.
it came up once before.
so I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of May 7th, executive session minutes of May 7th, 2018.
All right, I'll second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Abstain?
Abstain. Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of May 21st, 2018.
Which we were all there.
Second the motion?
Discussion? All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, any public or press questions?
He left.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Make a motion to adjourn at, what, 8:04?
Yeah.
Second the motion?
Discussion? All in favor?
Yes.
All right.